everybody. Hello, and welcome to the Sounder created out of the Sounder of Lady Hoggers. My name is Molly from the Copper Penny Farm, and I'm here with my friends as always. Say hello, friends.
Hello, friends. I am Laura Jensen. If you're watching this on YouTube, it was hairdo day yesterday, so that's why the big change today. Let's see what is happening around here. Let's start with Jensen Reserve as I look down the hill at the store. The federal license is finally pumping, y'all. About 2 weeks ago, I was pretty sure it was going to take me out. Had a bad day, reached out to my Sounder podcast ladies, like, I'm going to die.
Yeah. Yep.
And they were there for me. Thank y'all. And now we're starting to see a rhythm to it, and we're starting to understand how it's going to flow. The challenge is not so much that one license, although it is daunting in itself, but we're running 3 different licenses, and that's incredibly unique. But we're going to get it because it's what we do. So products are coming out of the chamber, which has presented a new problem. It's great to have wholesale products, but now I have to go find that business, because I've been retail for so long and not being able to wholesale. So now I need to go build that line, which, I'll do. It's what we do. In the pig world, I've got some pigs going to new homes this week. One that still hasn't farrowed. The vet's going to come out today and look at her. It's cold here, but not cold like everybody else. I think it was 20 here this morning, which is warm, probably compared to you, Amanda, as always. In other news, we're just getting ready for Christmas. I'm feeling much better after being able to kind of share my Thanksgiving woes, and I think Christmas will be great for us as a family. And I think it'll be fantastic for the farm store. It's usually these next 2 weeks are usually huge in sales, which we need. We've been down, but a lot of people has. I think it's just the economy. So I think that's the latest and greatest here. How about you, Amanda?
Well, we are doing good and just kind of trucking along. We have
In your
finished
in your new truck.
in what? In my new truck? Yes. Yes. Oh my
Cool.
gosh. Oh my God. Yeah, so a couple things. One, we finished our sheep barn. We don't have all of our stalls in yet for building little jugs, but the structure itself is done. Um,
Nice.
for the time being, I can't paint it yet. It's way too cold. So I will get to that this spring when we thaw out. Yeah, over the weekend, Kellen, my husband, and Dash went with Kellen's Uncle Richard to, we just love Uncle Richard. But he has an excavating business. He is 76. He's about to be 77. And he's a rancher, and he also has an excavating business. He helped us put in our septic. We bought our land from him. And anyway, he still does all this work for local farmers and stuff. And he has a farmer that he's getting ready to be doing some demo for, because this farmer has a big pivot on one of his fields. It's like a circle pivot. And so he's got a bunch of stuff that he needs hauled off, cleared out, whatever. Well, he had this old truck, and he'd asked Kellen to come and take a look at it with him. And this truck has been parked there for a while. I think it was last registered in like 1988.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
it's an early 1960s Ford Y-body, one ton
Very cool.
flatbed dually. So,
Cool.
and it has had the windows down. It's been parked with the windows down, and it has got dust in the floorboards up to the seats. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. And the engine is about that. It has about that much dirt in it also. But
Wow.
it's had, like, the oil dipstick has been in it. It's Uncle Richard seems to think that this truck is going to be a good truck if we can get all the dust out of it, get it cleaned out, and become friends with the junkyard. So it got hauled to our house over the weekend, and here she is. So
and I wouldn't even change the paint job on her.
I
No,
know
you can't.
it is a combination. It's a combination of yellow, red, and green.
Yeah,
And yeah, we think we're gonna name her Beulah. So
Cool.
that's good.
Yeah.
Isn't she on was it Buck Family Ranch, that Facebook page? Is that where we saw it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
cool.
Yep. So we saw it. Yeah, I don't even think I said that earlier. I was Amanda Buck with Buck Family Ranch. But yes, that is where you can see her. You can view her in all her glory right there.
Oh
But
yeah, I was thinking like Patty because she looks like she got patches.
well, I had one person suggest we name her Crayola.
Yeah, yeah. Cray cray.
Yeah.
Cray cray.
Uh,
That's a good one. I like that.
an old stick shift, and I think it'll be good for our kids to learn to drive on her. And I know Dash, he's eager to get it going. So it'll be good. I mean, the kids are already driving the Razor all around and stuff, and I think it'll be good. They're farm kids. They need to learn how to do these things early. So
Yeah.
but yeah, we're excited to see where that goes. In other news, we did have a fire in our chicken coop this past week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah, that was scary. So we've had a heat lamp that we had in there for chicks that we bought in October. And normally I would be like, they're 8, 9 weeks old, pull the heat lamp out. But I mean, we've had nights, we haven't been in the negatives yet, but we have definitely, like, we woke up one morning to 1. I think I talked about that last time. We had a
Mhm.
morning last week that was 2. So it's been pretty cold at night, and everybody's waters are freezing and things like that. So for the chicks, we had just opted to leave the heat lamp in there. It's generating a little bit of heat inside the coop because our brooder is inside of the coop, and it's keeping their water thawed out. So we'd left it in there, and somehow last week while we were gone, the screw that was holding the clamp to keep it hanging came loose, and it dropped and fell onto the floor of the brooder and completely burned out the floor of the brooder box. I don't know how the chicks lived, but they lived.
Wow.
Oh
I thought it
gee.
wasn't worse. That's
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah, it's especially scary. It's kind of started to climb up one of the walls. I was able to douse that before that got worse. It was just smoldering at the point that we found it. So I was able to go ahead and douse that with some water. But we had winds that were like 30 to 50 mile per hour that day, like
Mm,
nonstop. And
mm.
so all I think is if that had gone further and it had really like lit a wall on fire, who knows what all would have been burned. I mean, it would have
Yeah.
been half the desert would have been on fire. It would
Oh,
have been
wow.
Yeah.
so
Well,
weird.
that's very scary.
Yes. So anyway, that's about what we've had going on. What about you, Molly?
No, I've just been having normal stuff go on. I got, my baby pigs are going to New York next week, and I got that going on, and I got Cliff Davis from Pig and Leaf is coming up next week as well to bring some of his pigs. They're going to, and so
Ooh.
I'll get to. I've never met Cliff in person, so I'll get to meet Cliff in person finally.
That's
Cool.
exciting.
We talk literally all the time, but we've just never met each other. So I get to do that. I got a few more events coming up, for my books and stuff, and that's doing really well. And, just a lot of things, man, a lot of things.
Very cool.
My 3rd book is almost done. So, and it's about a cow, not a pig this time. So that's that.
Well, okay.
Yeah. So, no, it's just, trying to get my life in order. I've been in a slump for a long time, and I one thing I do hope is that people understand that, I have been going through things that, if I haven't talked to you, it's not because I'm mad at you or I'm avoiding you. It's just, I needed time.
Mhm.
So yeah, just doing that, trying to get my mind right and trying to prep. Christmas is coming around, which is going to be kind of hard, but and the new year, and just going about my life.
Yeah.
All right.
So are y'all ready for today?
Let's do it.
All right, let's talk about it a little bit. So today we're going to talk about the food pyramid, right? And I think that a lot of people, when they think about the food pyramid, the first thing goes into their mind is the actual triangle and, whatever. But there's so much more detail and in depth about it that people don't know, they haven't researched, and there's a lot of change going on. And it all revolves around our food system, the food cycle and what's going on in our world today. So I'm pretty excited. I say we're going to call this one something like the pyramid scheme or something like that. I don't know yet. But,
Right.
I'm pretty excited about getting to talk about it today because I think that it will bring light to something that people thought was just very simple.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to jump in with an article that I printed out that was written in February 19th of 23, and it is called "Why the Food Pyramid Was Never Meant to Keep You Healthy. We Were Set Up for Failure." This is written by Nairi Osler of I think self is the food is where it's coming from. Anyhow, like you said, Molly, I think we all grew up with the food pyramid, but the history of it is that the first one was actually created officially in Sweden in 1970. And that was to counteract the street protest about high food prices. So the government created a committee to determine if a healthy meal could be put together at an affordable price. And then from there, officially, it was introduced in the U.S. in 1992 by the USDA, with 6 blocks stacked from the largest to the smallest. It was suggested that people consume 6 to 11 servings daily of rice, bread, and pastas, then fruits and vegetables at 3 to 5, and then dairy, and then the minimal part was fats and oils. This goes on to say the food pyramid was based on the premise that people needed to get the most nutritional value they could at the lowest cost. So the entire diet was made up of a huge amount of carbohydrates. And now, as more research has come out, consumers thought they were doing the right thing when they replaced high fat foods with processed junk that was touted as low fat. Oftentimes, these foods contained additives like sugar, salt, chemical fillers, and such that were detrimental to our health. Some of the side effects from these are chronic disease, weight gain, and other risks to your health, like your heart health. This is also is where it's thought many people started developing type 2 diabetes because their bodies were either unable to produce enough insulin or unable to process the excess insulin it creates. Registered dietitian Susan Bowerman pointed out the fact that the grain group at the base of what was influenced by lobbyists in the grain industry. The results determining exactly what a healthy diet looked like, what would not maximize profits for food corporations, so it was changed. There's more that I can say, but I think that kind of sums it up. What do y'all think?
I think that we talked about this before we even started. The main thing to me is that the largest portion is those pastas, is the carbohydrates.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and go ahead, Amanda.
I was going to say, which we've discussed in previous podcasts, those seem to be the most now, anyways, either genetically modified.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of obviously GMOs within our fruits and veggies too, but I feel like those pastas and grains and stuff, basically grains, those things are genetically modified nowadays. They're also, I think, in a lot of farming operations, being sprayed with pesticides and herbicides that may or may not contain glyphosate, which has a serious effect on people's health. So it's interesting. It's interesting.
Well, and don't forget the oils they're using to make these breads, seed oils.
Yeah.
And look at the preservatives and stuff that is put in to your pastas and to keep them shelf ready.
Y'all remember when store-bought bread used to mold?
Oh, it don't mold no more.
It does not. No, largely, it does not.
It does not mold anymore.
Yeah. No, I thought it was funny. I bought a loaf of bread because I make my own bread 90% of the time. I have the same recipe that I use for rolls. It doesn't matter. Loaves, donuts, I don't care. Anyways, I bought a loaf of bread not too long ago, and I forgot about it. Like I had put it up in the cabinet, and I'm like, that shit's molded.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
No, No. And it was shocking to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. On my health journey, when I was like, something is screwed up with my body, with whatever it is, I couldn't figure out how to eat. I had no idea. It seemed like everything I tried was a failure. So I did try the food pyramid thing, and that was before I knew what a gluten intolerance was. So
Yep.
as y'all can imagine, I felt awful, and the psoriasis went off the charts. And I didn't really understand it until later. Just more of an elimination diet. I've had to get away from all these things. I can't function if I eat them.
Yeah. Well, I also think it's interesting because, they recommended with the food pyramid taking away, greatly reducing the fats and things that we consume.
Yep.
And they started, just like you mentioned, Laura, putting out all these things that were fat free or low fat or this or that or whatever. They contain all these additives and various other things. So it's kind of like twofold. So one, you've got all these additives and things that are added to make something taste better. There's there's issues with that too. It's not satiating because it doesn't contain the fat. And secondly, you get addicted to it because you just want to eat more and more and more because it's not satisfying.
Yeah.
But in addition to pulling out all those fats, um, there's your brain needs fats. People's brain
Yes. Yeah.
needs fats. And so now we have this thing called Alzheimer's. We have issues with dementia. And I know like memory issues existed in the past, but I feel like it's much more common now
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
hear about people all the time being diagnosed with Alzheimer's and
Mm-hmm.
things of that nature, when it's kind of like people's cholesterol, you monitor cholesterol and cholesterol levels and this and that, and it's touted that cholesterol is such an awful, horrible thing, when really it's your brain needs cholesterol. It's just doing it in the right ways. Like if you are
Yeah.
consuming that are super fatty and then consuming 6 to 11 servings of highly processed foods on top of that, like that's not good for your body. But
Right.
if you are selectively doing it in the right way, I feel like you can have elevated cholesterol levels that's healthy for your brain and healthy for your body. You're not going to have a heart attack.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and there's more research that those numbers are somewhat dictated by the pharmaceuticals as well.
Oh yeah.
But that's another story for another day. Maybe not our food podcast, but anyhow.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I just,
think though, I do find it interesting that, I think Amanda, I don't know if she said it on here now or before we started, that the main components that they're saying, plus, saying that you need to eat, what was it, 6 to 8 servings of this
6 to
throughout the
11.
day.
6
Yeah.
to 11.
Yeah. I mean, but the majority of these products, the high percentage that they're trying to get us to consume, has been the most messed with of all of them.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are easily manipulative. But when you go to your meats and stuff like that, until now, they have been the less manipulated portion of it, but their portions are smaller.
Yes. So back in, I think it was 2010, the USDA adopted this thing called My Plate instead of the food pyramid, to kind of try to encourage people to eat healthier by visually seeing on your plate what should be fruits, what should be veggies, what should be carbs, and what should be meat. And it basically makes it so that over 3/4 of your plate is fruits, veggies, and carbs. And
Yep.
it's under 1/4 of your plate should be a protein. But what they're doing is they're taking that, and like when you break it down in your day, if you ate like that for all of your meals, it would make it so that 88% of your meals, so 12% of that is going to be a protein, and 88% of what you eat in that day is basically going to be a form of a carbohydrate. And when you look
Yeah.
at what the carbs are, yes, like fruits, veggies, and grains can all be GMOs.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and I think that's what people are not realizing. We have been manipulated so hard to where, you think that you don't need this protein, you don't need this because it's not really structured as a necessity in our food chain, in our food system. So there we once again are losing the fats and the natural product that our body needs because it's not being manipulated as hard as the produce and the grains.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think too, and looking at all of this, we talked about before we got on here with the whole the food pyramid in general. I can remember when that came out in 1992. I was in elementary school, and I can remember studying the food pyramid when I was in, it was either first or second grade. Um, just studying that and learning about it. And I can remember telling my mom about it.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of something I feel like my parents grew up raising their children, kind of using that as a guide. And then we learned about that at such a young age. And so for us to be eating that way, it just seems normal.
Yeah.
But I think there is a direct correlation when that has kind of been ingrained in you and you don't
Yeah.
really any other way to think. You don't have somebody coming along saying, "Hey, have you thought about this?" If that's just kind of how you've been ingrained to think about a healthy way of eating, and we're raising our children that way, I think that you really truly can see a direct correlation between the way that we are eating and the health of our people.
Yeah.
It's direct,
Absolutely.
there's a
Yeah.
direct tie to that. And that's why I think this is so important because we kind of need to break the cycle of thinking like, oh, well, this is okay. I mean, think about the food pyramid, or maybe you're a
Yeah.
later generation and you're familiar with the My Plate. I had never heard of the My Plate until I started researching this.
Yeah.
I was in my mind, I was still thinking food pyramid. But if you're sitting there thinking, oh, well, it's okay. We can eat like this. It still kind of goes in line with the food pyramid. It'll be fine. It's not fine because that food pyramid, like Laura mentioned earlier, was originally created during a time when there was either food shortages, inflation. America kind of had like their own version of a food guide back in the 1940s during World War II, but it was all based on food rations because there were food shortages. And I think that's what we really need to understand here with the food pyramid is that it's not necessarily out there because it's healthy for you. It was put there because it can be manipulated. It can
Yeah.
be,
Well, it can be manipulated. It can be mass produced. It lasts a long time. It's preserved. There's so many things that are going into it because when you say, well, pasta, bread, and stuff, I mean, when you say that is your mass majority, look how many varieties are in the store. Have you ever looked to see the expiration on Texas toast?
No.
no.
Dude, that shit will be here after Jesus.
It'll be here with the cockroaches.
I'm telling you, man, the expiration on that's like 35 fucking years or something like that.
Wow.
So, but when you look at it, that's a major Texas toast is a major. I mean, it could be a major thing of your food system every day.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
something of that nature. I mean, essentially that's what it's based on.
Yeah, but like growing up though, like air food, what I grew up on was a legit meat, right?
Mm-hmm.
A fucking pork chop, a pot roast. You had a
Mm-hmm.
legit meat.
Mm-hmm.
You had a legit vegetable.
Mm-hmm.
You had bread, no matter if it was a roll or a slice of cornbread,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you had milk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And now it is so manipulated to where like people, that's not how we eat anymore. It's not simplicity.
No, simplicity comes with a fancy name as a diet. And I've had to kind of live
Yeah.
that, and that's a lot of my customers. But, we have to eat keto, for example, or more carnivore or something like that. And it is,
Yeah.
that's a great perspective from what used to be the norm is now considered the exception to
Yeah.
eat.
That is
Yeah.
interesting. That is interesting because, I feel like our family kind of grew up with, I was a hamburger helper child.
Oh, look at you.
That's my mom. We we were a one income family, and my mom could literally rub pennies together and feed our whole family of 6. That's what she had to do. And so at that time, I think we didn't have a farm or anything like that. So she just had to buy things that she knew would feed our family and would be good, good enough. So it was like 1 box of Hamburger Helper with 1 pound of meat fed our family of 6
Wow.
with,
Yeah.
with usually either green beans or corn or peas,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
bread and butter. And that was dinner. We did a lot of that, or spaghetti, because spaghetti is not crazy expensive to make, but it was almost always some sort of pasta dish. For us to have like pork chops or pot roast or something like that, that was like a big deal. That was a special
Yeah.
meal because it's meat
Yeah.
heavy. And so, I think about that now with our own kids, and it's like, I hardly ever make pasta. We almost always, I don't know. We do have a lot of white rice. I make a lot of jasmine rice, but I don't know. I feel
Well,
like,
but that brings up another thing too. Okay, so you said that 1 box of Hamburger Helper fed your family of 6, right?
yeah,
Look at the portions of food that we eat now.
yeah, I know.
Well,
I was gonna
one
say,
box of Hamburger Helper is not going to feed 6 people anymore.
mm-mm.
No. And the other part that I think is interesting is to talk about the economics of it. I mean, it is expensive to eat well, and clean
Yep.
and good. And it's really sad. And I don't know what the answer is to that, but the food pyramid certainly, I guess it does save you money in doing it, but
At what cost?
at all
But
costs. But if you, I mean,
that's a manipulation again.
yeah, yeah. And that's why I'm largely quiet, because I just think this whole thing is BS. And not you by any means, not my fellow hoggers here, but the entire food pyramid is just crap. I mean,
Yeah,
really, it's manipulation, it's garbage. The food plate is no different. The entire plan of the government here to help with our food is a premise that we should all kick out the door. I mean,
Yeah.
it's killing us. It's making us sick. They're feeding our kids in schools based on this stuff. And what in the world? Why if we are the most powerful country on the planet, why can't we feed our children well?
Oh my God. If you look at in just say Europe, for example, what their school lunches are compared to what Americans feed their kids, it is fucking disgusting.
I've seen some here. When we moved from Gwinnett County, which is the biggest county in the state, more wealthy because of that, out here to Walton County. And the things the kids were eating, I wouldn't feed my dog. I mean, and
No.
and, and I'm pretty liberal with that, really. But it's a shame that this is what we as a culture deem as okay. And so many people don't even know that they've been lied to, and that their kids are being taught to eat in ways that are going to make them sick and set them up for a lifetime of disease and no energy.
Well,
And
and another thing also, we live in times where more children than you think depend on that school meal.
yes, it's the one meal they get, or the 2 meals they get maybe that
Yes.
day. Yes.
They are so dependent on that. But what we're doing is they're so dependent on something that is terribly bad for them. So
Yes.
when they spend their 12 years in school, 13 years in school eating this every day, that's what they know. That is their life, that style of food, which is bad for them.
well, and then
Yeah.
on top of that, they may be struggling with things like ADHD or autism or other things. And I'm not saying that those things come directly from food, but I'm also not saying it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
We know that our health is managed with food. We all know
Yes,
that here. So
yeah,
yeah.
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 And so it's kind of like, it's sad. It's really disheartening. And when you mentioned that about Europeans eating so differently, just yesterday, Kellen read me an article. He always looks on like the Daily Mail. I don't know exactly where all he looks, but he read me an article yesterday about a shipment of American food that wound up being confiscated in Europe, and the people were arrested and imprisoned. And it was a shipment that had Doritos, Swedish fish, a couple different types of like candies and sodas and like processed foods, because what we allow in foods here in America is completely banned in Europe when it
Yeah.
comes to the food dyes and certain ingredients like preservative type ingredients and this and that that we're okay with here, but is not okay in other countries.
Yeah, this article essentially, like I touched on this is talking about that essentially lobbyists and corporations dictate what we eat. There's really no nutritional basis whatsoever. And I'll put on the tinfoil tiara today first. Is the government trying to make us sick? Is this a big pharma type thing driving it? Where the money goes, the other things follow. So
Yeah.
what is behind it? Obviously, our government doesn't give one shit about us and whether we're healthy or not, if this is what they're promoting. And what's that about?
Yeah. Well, this goes back to many podcasts that we've talked about. We have taken and fucked with everything good.
Yep.
Everything good. Just like we did the podcast on the apple cider vinegar. That's fucked.
Yeah.
You go to your vegetables now being coated with all that shit now. Those are fucked. You go to all the GMOs and the modified grains and everything. We have fucked with that. We're starting to mess with our meats.
Yeah.
With all the mRNA and the vaccinations and all this, we're messing up on our meat. So we in our country, because I lived in Europe for quite some time, and it was drastic what their food, the comparison of what I ate over there to here. It was insane. I would walk just down the road and they'd be pulling out fish in nets and you just go over and pick your fish out.
Wow.
But like here, everything comes in a box and a package.
Mm-hmm.
And the people like us that are trying to grow naturally things as natural as we can, as good for you as you can, there's so many regulations being put on us now because they don't want that.
Yeah. There is. And why are proteins such a small thing? I mean, in my opinion, proteins are the building block. And yeah, I have to talk about that with these lard hogs I raise. You don't need to feed something that can make fat just fine, something to make more fat. You got to feed it protein. You got to build muscle. So, and the ridiculous thing is that's what this food pyramid says.
Yes.
Build fat, not muscle. What?
Yeah. I mean, they have taken out our protein. They've taken out our natural fats that our body genuinely, truly needs. And it goes back to the other podcast before. This country has made fat in your body okay. Like your fat, sugar made, carbohydrate made, fat is fine. But a natural fat that you need for your brain, for everything, we have made that into such a bad thing.
Been villainized, absolutely. Let me say this though. So my lard hogs. I did do a campaign all about lard, and we stay largely sold out now. So yes, I think in terms of America as a whole, you're right. But I do think that we're making a difference, and some people are starting to see that difference. But it's really hard. It's much more complicated to eat like this than it is to go get that white vegetable stuff off the shelf.
I agree. And I also think that with the natural fats and things like that, I do think that more and more people are seeing, their eyes are being opened. I think that the whole COVID thing generated so much lack of trust in the government.
Yeah.
And I do think that more and more people's eyes are opening and have been opened and are realizing certain things like this, that natural fats are not a bad thing if ingested in moderation. And also, it's interesting just to point out that our bodies can use fat for energy. Our bodies can do that, and it doesn't require additional inputs. Like we can use fat for energy. With carbs and things that we're eating, it converts carbs, whether it's a grain, whether it's a fruit, whether it's a vegetable, our bodies take that and convert it to glucose. And then it
Yep.
stores that glucose. And if we have too much glucose, that's when it converts to fat, stored fat on our bodies. That's not a healthy fat. And so if we're consuming these grains, fruits, and veggies in larger quantities and not eating healthy proteins, I'm not even going to say a lean protein. I believe in fatty proteins. As long as you are eating the right kind of fat, and we're cutting that out, your body is just going to store all this glucose, and like, you're not going to be able to burn all that off. It's just not going to
No.
happen.
And that's where I think insulin resistance is
Yes.
stemming from. Fatty
Yes.
liver is on the rise in America.
Yes.
And I know
Yep.
I haven't really shared this with y'all, but I still eat clean and I still struggle with blood sugar. And I think that's the root of my problem is I've got to get my organs clean. And it's tough because there is no modern medicine remedy for it. There is no magic pill. If diet doesn't fix it, then I've turned to a leading herbalist that's helping me with it. But today's one of those days, y'all. I don't feel good, and it's because I'm trying to get these organs clean, and it's tiring.
It's because you
Yep.
ate that Chinese food on Thanksgiving.
Yeah. So here's the funny thing. What set it off is I ate a steak. I ate a fatty
Oh,
steak, and
Oh,
um,
yeah.
and it
Okay.
was at that moment. I mean, literally, my liver hurt. And that's
yeah.
been two weeks ago. And so I've had to clean up fat for a minute from that, and I've started on the herbal remedy for it. But it's not going to be an easy road. It's going to be a 120-day journey or so to try
But
to get it fixed.
but you got to think too. How long is it going to take? Because how long have we been eating this way?
And that's just it. I can eat clean for 6 months and I can get my numbers in line, but something's still off. And it's because it's a lifetime. It's a
Yeah.
lifetime of processed foods and eating for fun and eating for pleasure, and fats don't matter, and use unhealthy oils, and it builds up over time. And it's disheartening to me. I think you guys can probably hear that and see that, but it is what it is. At least I know. And the solution is to do nothing and feel like crap and die early. And those two aren't an option for me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But going back to the food pyramid and stuff, it relates to just everything that has been ingrained in us.
mhm.
It has been ingrained in us since we were children and but if you go back in the day, although they may not have had a longer life expectancy, because I mean them motherfuckers was out there cutting trees with like toothpicks and shit. You know what I mean? Like, but it's like, get you a butter knife and let's go cut a tree down, and then you die from a heart attack. But the way that we used to eat, what you grew, healthy, natural stuff without all this process and everything, that has been lost. It's coming back now, but it's
Mhm.
harder for any of us to even get our hands on that stuff because it
Mhm.
is extremely inflated, because us farming it is inflated.
Mhm. Well, the whole grass-fed, grass-finished movement. I mean, we've done pretty good with that in the store. It sells consistently, but that sums up what you said. I mean, the amount of land it takes to raise the cattle and
Yes.
do it right, and with the suburban sprawl and things like that, it drives the price up, and it is a challenge to find something affordable that you can know is clean and healthy. And that's something I always try to remember in the store. We have some bulks that we sell, 5 pounds, 10 pounds. And I'm very adamant about that because it makes food affordable for people that otherwise, couldn't do it.
Yeah. But putting on your tinfoil hat again, that's what has been in the works.
Yes. My brain goes to big ag, which that's probably an unpopular thing to say. but they did their job. At the end of the day, that's a business, and they got really good at what they did, and were able to outmarket and outprice pretty much the majority of small farmers. Up
Yep.
until now, there's only been a handful. If you think about it, over the last even 10 years, I've been doing this for 7 years. There were very few of us doing that. We've talked about pastured pigs. That's still a
Yep.
novelty. By and
Yeah.
large, it's becoming more regular. But yeah, I guess it's coming full circle. At the end of the day, we went to the stacked food supply with CAFOs and all that, and now the pastured movement is coming back. In this 7 years, like I told y'all, people didn't want grass finished beef, really, 5 and 6 years ago, and now they do. And understanding their local market and their health, I think, are the two driving factors on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've hit a turn. I think a majority of this turn in people trying to educate themselves, people trying to get informed on what they're taking into their body, I think that stems from COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I do
Mm-hmm.
too. I think that that is one thing that we can be thankful for with COVID, is that it really has been a catalyst for people to, I feel like there's a certain group of people that still wants to just go around in masks and getting every single vaccine possible. And
Sure.
then there is a larger group that just wants to do the best they possibly can for themselves and their families.
Yep.
And I think that we've some of us have been a little quieter about that. Um, because for the longest time, I know when we were living in North Carolina, all I heard was how we should be afraid, how we needed to mask, how we needed to do this, we need to do this. And for us, we were just like, well, then we're not going anywhere because I'm refusing to do that. And um, it just felt so isolating. And it kind of felt like I'm the only one who feels this way. I would talk to one of my friends who was a firefighter, and she, her and her family didn't want to get vaccinated, but they were like, but if our kids are going to need to do that to go to school, or we're going to have to do it, we may consider doing it. And for us, it was a non-negotiable. No, that's not happening. We're not doing it.
Right.
Um, and so I feel like that mindset was very isolating in a way, because it made me feel like all we're hearing about is the loud squeaky wheels telling us we have to do this. And then I began going to the chiropractor that my family went to in North Carolina, and realized there was a whole group of us
Yeah.
that didn't think that way, that we felt like, no, this is okay. We need to give our bodies nourishing foods. We need to be getting plenty of sunshine and time outside, fresh air, and doing all these things. And I think that was, for me, what kind of kicked off with, like, you know what? I'm going to trust my gut a little more. I don't think it's wrong. And I think that there's so many of us out here that feel that way. I know all three of us do. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that there's a very, very large group of people that all feel that same way. But for a long time, I think have just felt like, well, we got to be kind of quiet about it because we don't want to offend anybody. We don't want to start a fight with anybody. We don't want to be called names or anything else. It's not worth that. But really, we're all out here. And I think that we're starting to see um, more and more people care and put forth the effort. I saw there's been this reel floating around that talks about millennials being the group that's going to create the change. And I think for a long time I've thought of millennials as kind of like being this entitled group of people who just wants to go back home and live with mom and dad. But
Yeah.
really, I think that the year that I was born puts me in the millennial bracket, which I don't know how I feel about that, but it is what it is. Um, But I also think, okay, well, I'm one of those people that's like, no, I'm living in a camper, making our own soap, making our own lotions. I make our own food. We're raising animals to eat. We're trying to live off our land. I'm trying to talk Kellen into a milk cow. Like, there's all these things. And it's like, it, whether you have land or whether you have a backyard, I feel like more and more people are really trying to do better
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
do more for themselves, to be more self-sufficient, to give their bodies nourishing foods, or put nourishing products on their skin, or, whatever it may be, to get away from these big companies who really are poisoning us.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I think we are seeing a change. I think we're seeing a change, but it's a hard road to travel for the change.
Definitely. It's ingrained in us like we started out.
Yeah.
This whole
Yeah.
food pyramid thing is, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, when you think about it, when you're, talking shit about the food pyramid, you're talking shit about generations of our food system, generations of people.
yeah.
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and to try to switch that, like you can't do it overnight.
No.
And in the time that we're living right now, it's so expensive. I mean, just like you were saying, Laura, being able to know your local market and things like that. Like if people can't grow these things or do these things on their own and they need to outsource that and get it from a local farmer or wherever, um, you can't make 100% of that switch overnight because it's so
No.
expensive to do that. And it's
Yeah.
overwhelming.
But
Also,
it goes back to it goes back.
You there, Molly?
I'm sorry, I got my service went crazy. Sorry I interrupted you, Amanda.
that's okay.
But I think it goes back to why we started this. And
Mhm.
I say it every podcast. Community.
Mhm. Yep, it's what it's going to take. It's how we get to the next level.
Yeah.
I'll give a plug for all of us small farmers out there. In a time of inflation, it is, I think, incredibly hard, much harder on a small farmer to keep up when all of our inputs are the highest inputs on the market to begin with. And
Yes.
we're coming through our second round this year of a 15% increase. And
Yep.
if you're not paying attention and a lot of us are busy farming, you're not going to make it. So,
No.
consumers, please keep that in mind that, we're not trying to, buy gold here. We're just trying to keep providing for our community.
Yeah, we're not, somebody asked me the other day what I charge for a a a, a finished hog. Well, not finished. On the hoof, ready to go to butcher hog, right?
Mm-hmm.
Per pound. I
Mm-hmm.
told them what I charge per pound. They
Mm-hmm.
sent me a message back with a middle finger and said, "You're crazy."
Wow. Okay. Well, when you're sick later.
I'm like, do you understand that by the time I pay the processor, by the time I have grown this hog out for 9 months, do you understand how much my feed costs, what my labor is? I don't
Right.
even get to pay myself.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's not sustainable. And Bill and I have this conversation all the time. If you're not counting your labor costs, then you're screwing yourself.
You are. When I got a fucking $900 electric bill because I got to run lights and lamps and stuff in a barn,
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, what I do think though is it does go back to community. It's us helping educate, promote, and embrace each other. And for us to get together and people source out what they can get. You can source out.
Yes.
Yeah.
You
And
don't
we've
have to
talked about
stick
this
with your big
before.
boxes.
No, it's we've talked about this before too. You can source out, but it's not going to be in the abundance that you have been ingrained that you need. Those 11 servings of fucking pasta, that is so bizarre to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It should be. No wonder America's largely sick and overweight and diabetic, right?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, man. Can you imagine? So but it comes to us getting back to reality, getting back to the simplicity, of what we truly need.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
I
just
agree.
in my moment of, like if I'm sitting there trying to come up with what am I going to feed my family this week? How am I going to afford to feed my family this week? Or, whatever. I just always think back, I've read Little House on the Prairie with our kids. I have read, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the Little Britches series by Ralph Moody, but it's so good. It's so good. I've read those with our kids and just things were hard then. But also so simple. Like
Yep.
food was simple. And so whenever I am having those moments of discouragement or just like, man, I just always think back to that. And it's like, how would they have eaten? What would they have done? What would they have done? And even with their animals and things, it's like for us out here, we would love to have cattle and we would love to do this or we would love to do that, but our land just won't support that. So
Yeah.
what can we do? What can we do to still provide food for our family that our land will support? And sometimes I think that that's kind of how you have to approach it is you may want to have this, 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 and this, but what, like realistically, when you look at it, what can you do? And,
Yeah.
you know, even if you can't grow your own food and looking at the food pyramid, just toss it out the window. Toss the food,
Yep.
toss that food pyramid out the window. Yes. And just think about how did people used to eat? They've
Yeah.
survived for thousands and thousands of years
Without
doing
fucking
things.
donut burgers, you know?
Isn't our life expectancy shorter now than it has been in the past? Did I read
Yeah.
that? Am I making that up?
Yes,
That's real.
it is shorter now. But you know, going back to when you said that, Molly, about life expectancies may have been shorter then. They may have been shorter then, but I guarantee you, even though I wasn't living then, I guarantee you their quality of life was leaps and bounds better than what it is now.
Oh,
Because they
most
were
definitely.
65, 70 years old out there cutting down that tree with their butter knife in perfect health
Yeah.
compared to people that age now who are barely hanging on by a thread.
Yeah.
In nursing homes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that if you can just toss that food pyramid out the window and think about, okay, what actually makes sense?
And what works for you? I mean, like you and I have talked, Amanda. You eat more carnivore. I eat more keto, and it's just a matter of what works.
Yeah. Yeah. For
Hey,
sure.
And Molly eats hot
Flaming hot.
Cheetos, flaming hot Cheetos from time to time, and that works
Hey.
for Molly.
hey, listen, y'all should be proud of me. I have not had flaming hot Cheetos in over a month.
Wow, that's big.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm very
Well,
proud of
cool.
myself.
Yeah. Yep. That's good.
All right. Well, what do y'all think about today? I think it was good.
I do too. I think I got to get out there and check on this sow that won't seem to farrow. But yeah, this was a good talk. I'm glad we got together.
I'm
Yeah.
glad we did. So you go check that hog. You go feed the hogs. Amanda go feed the churros. She can't feed a fucking turkey because she killed it. So I'll see you later.
Bye, y'all.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye. I love you.